The views expressed are those of the program's host, not necessarily those of the staff and management of WSTU or WPSL. This program is the property of Port St. Lucie broadcasters and may not be rebroadcast without written permission. And now, Perspective with John and Joe and your hosts, John Pearson and Joe Dorr.
Good morning to Perspective with John Pearson and Joe Dorr. I'm Joe Dorr, and there is
John Pearson. One and the only. Mr. Dorr, we have a lot to talk about today. Once again, it seems like our friends in the Democratic Party just keep on giving the gift that keeps on giving. Right now, they have got to be so excited for our president, really pumped and excited about the possibility of the Nobel Peace Prize, maybe even possibly two of them.
I know, you don't have to listen to Simon and Garfunkel's classic, The Sound of Silence, to conjure up the mainstream media's response to what's going on with this Nobel Peace Prize awards, or not awards, nominations.
I think that our good friend and the nation's good friend, and that's Pelosi, Ms. Pelosi, who, remember, Joe, it's all about the children. The children. And once again, she's very excited about this. I like the way she said that, it's about time. I mean, basically, that's what it is. It's about time. You know, he keeps on promising all these things, and it's about time.
Well, so far, President Trump has forced a peace deal between the United Arab Emirates and Israel, right? He's forced a peace deal between Bahrain and Israel. And President Trump has also forced Serbia and Kosovo, committing to establish embassies in Jerusalem and recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Trump has also destroyed ISIS, and actually Obama made his plans and political conjures over in the Middle East that ISIS was always going to exist. President Trump has also contained Iran.
And yet, Joe, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has downplayed President Trump's recent success in securing a diplomatic deal in the Middle East, calling it a, quote, a distraction. The White House announced, on September 11th, that President Trump has brokered a deal to establish full diplomatic relations between Bahrain and Israel, making it the second such agreement between Israel and an Arab nation in less than a month.
Pretty amazing. I'll tell you what. Prior to President Trump, there had been no Middle East peace deals in the last 25 years. President Obama fiddled with ISIS and conducted foreign policy as if they were here to stay. Iran was acting with impunity in the Middle East, and with all of that money that Obama gave to them to disturb and destroy neighboring countries.
So in all this good news, how would the third-ranking person in our country toward the presidency, what do you think her comments would be? Would they be something like this after hearing the good news? We've been waiting for a very long time for the president's proposal for an Israeli-Palestinian peace agreement that honored the two-state solution. It was coming in a few weeks. It was coming in a couple of months. It was coming in 6 months. It still hasn't come in any way that has brought peace.
How about our commentary about it being a distraction and not worrying about how many people are dying from a virus? How does that have anything to do with Israeli or Middle East?
Well, peace? I think they're looking at the virus thing possibly ending here and miraculously in a couple of months anyway. I'm convinced that the day after the elections, if Biden wins, he will have found a cure, and it'll be okay. By the way, I would predict that he would not find a cure until they're able to put all sorts of things nationwide that we're not allowed to do, and that the liberals will be once again guiding our lives, making them better through higher taxes and more restrictions.
Well, for certain, it's an opportunity to control the public more and more by putting in more rules and regulations and watch people obey these rules and regulations. It's a good exercise in government control.
It is a good exercise because they don't plan on doing it themselves. We've seen that vis-a-vis with Nancy getting her hair done, which, by the way, I don't blame her. But if you're going to tell the rest of us not to do that, then it really doesn't seem particularly fair that she's going in and do it. Joe, while we're talking about this with the President Trump and Biden, what are some of the issues that they just absolutely are just for and against? For example, Trump's all for reopening businesses and schools, and Biden is saying no.
Right. And as far as the National Guard to quell riots, Trump is for it. Biden's against it.
That's something again that's I think that they're catching on a little bit. The American public is not stupid. I think sometimes they give people more than one shot. But people are beginning to see, look, when you break windows and smash things and steal stuff, that's not a peaceful protest. When we talk about rioting and peaceful protests, those are very different things. And we should be able to talk about it without having somebody immediately go, well, you're a racist and you're against people protesting legally. No, not at all. Not at all. But breaking into windows and smashing and looting, to me, is in no way protesting as part of our Constitution.
And generally speaking, it's not the public that's out there doing it. It's being stimulated by Antifa and BLM, Black Lives Matter.
Well, I would agree with that. And I have noticed, if you pay attention, and people do, that when they're filming these crowds, they're saying that a crowd has gathered, protesters have gathered, and blah, blah, blah. You notice that a lot of times there's not a lot of people.
There aren't, and the amazing thing is, it's white kids, little twerps with money that have an idea that this country is not a good place, and whatever they're doing, I don't know what their purpose is, other than the fact that they've been taught the wrong story about our history.
Joe, I think you're using the term twerps. I think is unfortunate. I think nowadays we should be looking for more terms that gather love and friendship. I would use the term dweeb.
Well, I was going to twerps kind of fits in with all of the other terms that are out there.
Losers,
xenophobic, or there's all types of terms.
Well, you're only xenophobic if you're Trump or if you're a Trump fan. Then you're xenophobic. How about on the issue of gun control? How does that work out?
Well, Biden is definitely about taking your guns away, and Trump is about protecting our rights to keep guns. And also, more importantly, and that is China. Trump has really taken control of a relationship between China and the United States, where China had been taking advantage of us for years. And Biden was part of the team that brought China on board and giving them favored nation status, to the point where they're a threat to us now. And even at this point, Biden is in favor of having friendly relationships with China, meaning that we will then be in a position where we will be taken advantage of again.
Well, I think when you have a lot of corporate donors that are making quite a bit of money from China, and look, I believe in free trade. I do. I think that's a positive thing. But when you're being taken advantage of over and over again for years and years, and all we hear is this empty rhetoric, I think it's fantastic when we finally have somebody like a Donald Trump who comes in and says, nope, that's it, and then does something about it. I've grown up over the years thinking that presidents really don't do a whole bunch.
Well, then generally speaking, that's true. They listen to the people surrounding him. But Trump is actually doing things that he's been talking about for 25, 30 years. And one of the things that wasn't talked about is when he put tariffs on China. Those tariffs were really just to match the tariffs that they had on our products. And we only heard one side of that story from the media.
Well, I would suggest that normally that's all we hear is one-sided as well. Now, what about this other deal in voting? And to me, this is an absolute no-brainer. When you go to cash a check, when I go to cash a check, it seems like the more checks that I write over the years, the more identification people want from me. Nowadays, they want a complete body print, fingerprints, ID scan, eye scan, brain scans, whatever, when I cash a check. But I don't think it's unreasonable to have a photo ID when you are voting.
Absolutely not. I mean, you can't get on a plane. You can't do anything without a photo ID. If you're in New York City, you can't get into some buildings, just regular business buildings, without
one of the most important things that we do as American citizens is vote. I don't know what would be more important overall except for voting, and the sanctity of that is so important. It's so crucial.
Well, the difference really here is absentee ballots are requested, and there is a legitimate address, legitimate name, and that's where the absentee ballot is mailed and then executed by the voter. However, now they want to take voting lists, and we all know, it's common knowledge and has been for a long time, that voting lists are filled with people that have moved, people that have passed away, and people that are non-citizens.
Well,
and to be able to send ballots out to all of these people is just asking for fraud to occur.
But that's why it's so important to be educated nowadays, because you have these people that they don't overtly lie, but they do not overtly tell the truth either.
Right, and the media would like to conflate the absentee ballot with sending ballots to voting registration lists, and they are really two different things. And what a horrible time, but then again, a good time for some people to introduce something like this. If you're going to do it, let's put a plan together. Let's take 3 or 4 years to make sure we have this plan worked out, not just instituted month or two before an election.
I got a kick out of the voter suppression mumbo gumbo that the Democrats are saying about Donald Trump, and that he's having the post office reconfigure the boxes, the mail, which is done, by the way, consistently around the country every year. They're constantly moving them as the population moves and as the neighborhoods develop. And of course, when it's done now, it's voter suppression.
Well, everything is exaggerated and turned towards a negative as far as the president's concerned. Which reminds me, I want to talk about keepamericaamerica.com. That's keepamericaamerica.com. The purpose of this is to influence other people to vote, which is one of the reasons we started to do this show, was that we wanted to have some sort of an influence of getting information out, legitimate information out about what is going on politically. Now, Keep America America is an opportunity for you to get on the website and register yourself, and then contact 10 of your friends. And those individuals can contact 10 of their friends. So this is a conservative move or Republican move to get the vote out.
Well, Joe, that kind of stops the idea of voter suppression if we were to do that.
It's total antithesis to that. That's another tough one.
Folks, by the way, if you do have a difference of opinion, which is okay to have that against Mr. Doerr, of course, dial in at 772-220-9788. That's 220-9788. And, of course, you're listening to us by waves of WSTU 1450 AM and WPSL 1590 AM. We're on every Monday at 10 a.m., and that is Perspective. So, Joe, if we're not busy as conservatives trying to suppress the vote, what are we doing then? So this 10 and 10 is a way for us to really help get out who we would like to see win.
It's 10420.com, okay. Or you can go into keepamericaamerica.com. They're both the same website.
Now, let's talk about something here that it's always sensitive, and we talk about it particularly as older guys, that the moment you get involved in this, the terms racist come out, and if you don't toe the line on this thing, and that's the Black Lives Matter deal that we talked about earlier, that it's in its own name. You can't be against that.
No,
I mean, who could possibly be against Black Lives Matter? Of course they matter. That's like one of those, well, yeah.
Well, absolutely. And they've taken that theme and they've used it for purposes that really don't relate to that theme. For instance, it's been in existence for 7 years, Black Lives Matter. They've raised over $1 billion. They haven't had one neighborhood cleanup that we know of, sent one poor black child to college, bought school supplies, fed the hungry, donated to the poor bank, or provided housing to one poor black family. So that's what they should be doing, helping people to help themselves. And they're not doing that. They're using this to go around and disturb and destroy the United States citizenry. It just is unfortunate. And the most unfortunate part is corporations are paying thousands and thousands of dollars to this organization. In fact, Chick-fil-A, I found out, gave them $100,000. How disappointing was that?
Well, I think we've seen this type of style over the years. I think Jesse Jackson was probably one of the first people to really get into this, where when Jesse would get involved in any type of racial issue, it always seemed to at least appear that somebody within his family or organization, gee, what a coincidence, ended up with a beer distributorship. perhaps a car dealership somewhere along the line.
Budweiser beer distributorship was given to them.
Yeah. But I'm sure that had nothing to do with perhaps quelling any type of racial disturbances or any kind of
It actually
problem.
did.
Oh, stop.
Oh, it did.
Oh,
Yes.
I think that's a very
It was a long time ago, but I remember.
very cynical, typical of a conservative, very cynical approach to that, Joe.
I know.
So I'm going to kind of stress this then. So you would consider someone like Al Sharpton the same way?
Well, yeah, I remember that Tawana Brawley deal where that was a girl that said she was raped by a New York State trooper. And that New York State trooper spent years and hundreds of thousands of dollars defending himself. And it turned out it was a total lie. It was a farce. She admitted that it wasn't true. But that was after Al Sharpton, Reverend Al Sharpton, had already reached some level of fame. It should have, and from that, you would have thought that he would have been dethroned from this level of fame, but he wasn't. He just got stronger and stronger, which unfortunately he is not a good representative for black leadership at all. He's not a moral person.
You know, I think the reason why we are talking about this morning is that you have had social injustices in this country, and there's probably some still going on. I think we can all agree to that.
Yes,
but the
absolutely.
idea that this systemic thing, which is our new word, that's a big phrase. It's a lot like the old phrase. At the end of the day, that type of thing. We're going to be hearing systemic until the new word comes up to take over. Here's why we're talking about it so much. It is that you don't get the true story, which they base the entire outrage on, is inevitably the wrong story. Hands up, don't shoot. That never happened.
All right.
It just didn't happen. He was a great young guy. He was such a good kid. No, actually, he was not. He was not. Did he deserve to die? Well, I would think not. It was a horrible situation, but it could have been prevented. But let's talk about what really happened. The other guys as well. All these other stories. My gosh, they shot him 7 times. He was an innocent guy. He was a good man. Heck, he was almost a biblical character. Well, no, that's not what happened. So, yes, it was a shame that he got shot. It's horrible. Somebody lost a life. That's terrible. Black, white, yellow, green, I don't care. It was terrible. Terrible for the policemen as well nowadays. But tell the true story. Why is it that we have to not tell the truth? Because these guys can come out and go, well, we told the truth. Yeah, you told the truth, but you didn't tell all the truth. You didn't tell things like reaching into the side of the car. You didn't tell that he had been tasered twice, that they kept telling him to stand down, and yet he didn't. Why can't you finish the rest of that story unless you somehow think it would change people's opinion of what actually happened?
Well, where the real systemic racism is coming from is schooling. When you consider how many poor neighborhoods have poor quality schools, and they claim they have 70% graduation rates, and they think that's great. However, most of these schools, they're not taught well math or reading, which is 2 incredibly important items of knowledge that you need to have to be successful in life. If you cannot get a good base of education, you're absolutely starting off at a great disadvantage.
Do you think that is the main goal then, is to actually teach these kids something where they leave each day going, I didn't know that before I came to school today. I wasn't aware of that, but now I am.
I think if Black Lives could get in there and create opportunity zones such as Trump has done, and also to get into the schools and make the schools operate properly, get the unions out of there and get good teachers in there and get good education for these individuals that are in poor neighborhoods so that they have an opportunity to really be successful in life.
How about showing some great examples to these young guys, black, white, black, whatever, of older folks that have done really well in our society, that have not leaned on the old deal of, well, woe is me, give me something. Great example here in town is a businessman named Sandy Woods. Sandy Woods owns the Lexus dealership and the Toyota dealership here in town. The guy is a highly successful African-American businessman. Now, in my eyes, he's the guy that you look at. I don't care if you're black or white. You look at as a very successful guy, and you look up to. He's the kind of guy you would hope that our youth would look and go, I want to be like this guy. Honest, has integrity, tremendous public speaker, and is very good for our community. So why don't we hear more about these guys than we do the guys that are having their pants hanging off and barely able to get around or have been arrested 18 different times? And then we hear that they've gotten out of that, which is great, by the way. But how about a story of somebody who maybe didn't even go through the crime of the past? That'd be kind of nice as well.
Well, there are great opportunities out there. And I do believe, getting back to my original thought on education, I think that is the most important criteria that, or item that we could serve the poor people in general. Just get them educated, give them prime examples of people that have been successful, and show up early and often and work late, and you will be successful in life.
The old Lombardi thing. I try to teach my boys that the Lombardi thing: show up 5 minutes early, and get that reputation. Then you will always be considered somebody who will get there on time and early. The worst thing on the planet, I think, is showing disrespect by arriving late. Little things like that. So, but are just so darn important. Going back to this deal with the Biden and Trump thing, I think the American public is really hammering the idea, throwing Trump's kind of quirky personality, that might be one way to say it, quirky personality out. Then they realize that everybody will be paying higher taxes under a Biden administration.
They will, and it's kind of contrary in terms of what the Democrats plan to do if they get into office, and that is to eliminate or rather reincorporate the write-off capabilities of state taxes that you pay, write that off against your federal tax, which makes everybody else in most every other state supporting those states like New York, California, Illinois, and one or two other states where you have extremely high state taxes, and then they could write it off against the federal taxes. Now, they want to change that and give these wealthy people in the liberal states a benefit, a tax benefit, which they decry that the Republicans do that all the time. We don't seek to give rich people benefits. We seek to give the middle class benefits, tax benefits. But the liberal states are hurting badly now when they can't write off their state taxes.
Well, it was about time that the country woke up and saw that we were basically subventing taxes in New York and in California and these states, that you were allowed to write off the state tax off your federal tax, which was insane. So basically, we were paying for their benefits up in New York and in California and elsewhere. So,
and they were able to raise taxes, and it didn't seem like such an arduous thing to have to pay, because they were able to write it off against the federal tax.
So it wasn't the full load. So, but if you look at a guy like the mayor of New York now, de Blasio, you're looking at that's just going to increase, because now he's basically shown what it would, in a micro fashion, he's shown what it would happen in a national, in a macro, where people get used to all these bennies, and now it's I deserve them. Yeah, but you're not paying for them. I shouldn't have to pay for them. I didn't put myself in this position. Those wealthy people put me down here, and they're keeping me down.
Well, that's why Trump and the Republican administration couldn't get this new tax relief program through, because the Democrats wanted to have many, many billions of dollars to bail out the states that had already been wasting their money for many years and put themselves in a deficit situation. There's no time to bail them out. The time is to bail out the people that are affected by job losses due to this coronavirus and the shutdowns.
Well, that I agree with that, Joe, and also the fact that I believe the Democrats were not going to give Trump anything he could hang his hat on.
No, it'd be good for the economy.
Well, I think what we've seen during this pandemic, I think it's pretty darn obvious they could care less about that. It's much more about getting back into power. When President Trump originally talked about cleaning out the swamp, I think we all know what that means. I think he meant everybody. He meant the Republicans. He meant the Democrats. And I think we've got some Republicans that we've known for years as being good guys. No, I don't think so. I think deep down inside they don't want to. Look what happened to Ryan. I think Ryan was our starting guy on the bench. He was going to be a fantastic superstar, and I think he was just basically thrown out. I think he saw what was coming and got out while he could. Lindsey Graham. I hear a lot of talk from Lindsey Graham, but I don't actually see him getting anything done. I
Mhm.
see his outrage and his little trying to be funny sense of humor things, but I'd rather have a guy that says, look, I'm going to get this thing done now. Lindsey, I don't see anything getting done with him. A lot of talk, and that's it.
That's true. That is definitely the case, and I just feel that like you said, Republicans are running scared as well. They don't want to have their club destroyed or their system changed because it's a good life, the political life. You don't need somebody coming in and making the government efficient. That would be an awful thing to occur for them.
Why would you do that? I mean, in other words, why would you want to be held accountable? I think that's what one of the concerns is with the teachers union is how are you held accountable?
The teachers union, from what I see and what I read, is just a horrible situation. I mean, why would you want to have a union that's really going to affect education in a negative way? Because it's protectionist. They don't want to have chartered schools. They don't want to have competition. And competition in teaching is just as important as it is in any other system in life, sports or business.
Well, that's got to be
competition's important.
Got to be very frustrating to the good teachers. I admire these guys and gals that go out there and work every day dealing with a lot of these kids. It's got to be just a nightmare would be one term. I know that we've been through the pandemic, internet schooling and so on. I got to say, the teachers that I have experience with my boys and the administrators, there's a administrator at Murray named Dr. Brown. He's an ex-quarterback from, I believe, A&M. This guy is just a fantastic guy, cares about the kids, knows these kids. I feel like he knows my two boys.
That's great.
And he cares about them. If they're doing something good, I hear about it. If they're doing something, well, maybe I do need to hear about that. Well, I get a phone call from Dr. Brown. That is really amazing. Several of the teachers during this deal, hey, your guys are not on the web. They need to be on the web. So going to school. So I admire that. I think the teachers probably have a tough time with their own.
Disciplinary situations are very difficult in school these days with how our system has changed. When we were growing up and going to school, there was a thing called discipline, and that seems to have disappeared in lots of schools.
I remember Coach Bennett sometimes would whip out that paddle, and we call it the whipple because it had holes in it. And Coach Bennett would describe that he had holes in it because it could make the paddle sting more, and it was faster because it went through the air pressure.
Sure.
And you would go home and you would go, and I didn't get paddled off, but I got whacked a few times over the years. And I remember going back and going, yeah, I got paddled today. And the first thing Mom would go, what did you do? Not
exactly.
Coach, exactly. It wasn't Coach Bennett's fault.
I got slapped around in high school, but I didn't go to a public high school.
Yeah.
Went to a Catholic high school in the Bronx.
So you're an elitist.
Well, in the Bronx, you'd get beat up outside the school and slapped around in school.
And that was by the teachers on both accounts.
No. That you had to fight your way home to get back to Queens.
Yes, because you didn't want to go home.
Hey, by the way, I wanted to mention the fact that you had Jack. I don't remember his last name. You brought him to the dealership.
Yeah.
How did that? Tell me about that.
I tell you what, I have a business that started out. Matter of fact, you helped me get into this for years. After I left Toyota, people would ask me to come and shop for a car with them because people get nervous. They think they're going to get into a hassle or be ripped off, whatever. And in some cases, that may be true. I think most car dealerships are honorable people just trying to make a living, and they're trying to support their families as well. And people come in, and the customers are just as capable of coming in and perhaps not giving the exact true story of their car as well. Anyway, people call me up and they hire me now. And they call up 772-485-8007. That's 485-8007. And they call me up and they ask me to meet them at the dealership. And what I do is I'll meet them at wherever they're buying their car at. And then when it's time to negotiate for the car, truck, van, lease, used, new, whatever, motorcycle, whatever, boat, whatever you want to buy, I will do 100% of the negotiating for you. Sit back, slug down a beer, slug down a coffee, whatever you do, slug it on down, relax. I will take over the negotiating. When you are ecstatic about your deal and you feel like you have saved all sorts of money. Say, John, that's it. I'm ready to go. And when you're happy, I don't get paid until you are driving that new car when that car gets delivered. And then I get paid by you. So far, it has just worked out. Well, I probably have helped about 30 or 40 people here in the last several months. Everybody seems to be very, very excited about it. You can actually look on the web, pull up my site, and that's under carbuyerservice.com.
Car buyers
Service. Yep. That's a plural. Carbuyerservice.com. And you pull that up and it'll explain exactly how things are done, exactly set up the fee schedule as well. And it's an opportunity for everybody to save money and also to relax, make it an enjoyable process. I think the car dealerships like it as well. We're not in there to take everything away. We're there just to make sure that nobody gets the federal deficit balance on them on one car purchase.
And I get that feeling every time I go to buy a car in the past, like they want to balance their budget on my purchase.
Well, if you let them, they most certainly will. You know, you look at car dealerships. Car dealerships will average normally $2,400-$2,500 every time they sell a car across the board. Well, that means that they sell some of these cars for about $100 over, but there are the deals where they make $7,000, $8,000, $10,000 on. And if you want to be one of those people giving them the $10,000 deal, God bless you. We used to love you.
I would rather call you and they make $100 and I don't have to go through all the grief.
Well, we want the dealership to make some money because they have tremendous resources to take care of your car nowadays. Of course, they handle everything for you, the licensing and the transfer fees and so on. But if you are looking to buy or lease or trade or whatever it is on a new or used vehicle, trucks, whatever, whether it's for a fleet on business or you just want to buy one car, you're going to go out and buy several cars for family members, please give John Pearson a call, 772-485-8007.
Okay, before we get back to politics, I want to talk a little bit about Toastmasters International. It's an organization I've belonged to for probably 11 or 12 years. And what it does, it teaches you how to speak and how to deliver a message and how to be confident when you're doing that presentation, whether it's one-on-one or whether you're speaking in front of a group, small group or a large group. We have a meeting, Talking Heads of Stuart, here in Stuart, and that's Friday mornings from 8 to 9 a.m. It is a great organization. If you have any interest whatsoever, look up Toastmasters International or look up Talking Heads of Stuart, and you will look up on Google. You'll see the information there. And if you have any questions, you can give me a call. It's Joe Dewar, and the phone number is 772-203-5620. And I will give you all the information you need to become a Toastmaster and be able to be confident, develop your leadership skills, and speak in front of groups.
Well, I think that's the key.
And by the way, it's very inexpensive. It's about $120 a year.
That's it.
That's it.
About $10 a month.
Yeah.
See how quick in math I am.
Wow.
I know. Let me get my calculator back out. Public speaking is considered one of the biggest fears that people have. And if you can learn how to speak in front of groups, what an advantage you have in business or just in general to be able to communicate like that, particularly with your style. You have such first of all, you've got a credible voice. I know that's a singing voice and an acting voice. Your voice is tremendous, but capped on top of that, knowing how to speak, how to develop a speech, and then to communicate that with people. What an advantage that is for you young people out there, or even us retired folks. What a great way to advance and always continue learning.
It is. I find it a terrific advantage, and it's a wonderful thing to do. And you make a lot of good friends while you're going through this process. Gives you an opportunity to meet a lot of people as well.
You can tell that most politicians have had some type of teaching.
Some have, yeah.
I know years ago, my brother was involved in corporate crisis management, and they sent him to New York to learn how to speak in front of cameras. Particularly, they actually would teach him. I used to tell him that he was the guy that after the Exxon Valdez spilled all the oil, he would be the guy that would go out and tell people why it was good for the environment and that we actually saved thousands of birds because they were drying up and we provided oil for their wings. That would be his type of job. But they would teach him where they would all of a sudden surprise him on the street, and they would pile cameras in his face and microphones and ask him these off-the-wall questions, and he'd have to be able to respond very quickly in a very positive and a very likable way.
That is part of our program at Toastmasters International. It's called Table Topics, and a Table Topics master for the meeting will ask questions and then look around the room and pick somebody to answer the question. But like a politician, you don't have to answer the question. You can talk about something else that you might want to talk about. That's kind of like political structured speech, I think.
Yeah, I think we see a lot of that in the House of like the Congress, particularly now when they go in. I was looking at the Lewandowski. No, it was the congressional hearings that they had for him on the Russian thing, and just when they would ask a question, all these guys would just simply go off and answer something that wasn't even brought up.
Right.
And then finally at the end of it, they would go, "Well, we appreciate that, but would you answer the question?" And I liked what Lewandowski would say. He would look at him and they would go, "Oh, well, that was a question, sir. Answer the question." He would go, "Thank you." that was his response.
I want to say something about the Trump administration going forward, and that is they're going to have open arms for bringing back companies, U.S. companies that are working in China. And they're going to treat them like the prodigal son and give them everything they need to have to come back and do their business here in the United States. And I think that is sophisticated thinking that the current administration has in terms of developing the economics in this country, whereas I think that would be almost non-existent as far as list of things to do if Biden were to come into power.
Do you think anybody in our government is going to learn from this? There's a reason why these companies went offshore in the first place.
Yeah, too many regulations, higher taxes. These are all things that they want to bring back. More regulations, higher taxes, which will continue to have companies move away from the United States. And then they want to do this Green Deal, which makes no sense whatsoever, because we eventually will get to the point where we will have more efficient energy as we have been going. Everything is much more efficient than it was 20 years ago. But if you look at California, which we mentioned a week or two ago, they're 30% green power or reusable. That's the other term. In any case, they are having issues supplying enough power to the population. They have those rolling blackouts because they cannot support all the power needs that the country or the state has.
And every year they go through the same thing with these incredible fires.
I know.
Every year.
It's getting worse, and that's because they haven't been taking care of the forests. They need to get out all the dead wood, literally.
Well, the dead wood's going to be gone here in most of the states. It's not a laughing situation. It's horrible.
No.
But nevertheless, regardless, they're going to have a lot of that underbrush gone now because it's burning, and that's what caused it. So maybe they'll have a 2 or 3 year break now from having this thing burn again because there's nothing left to burn.
Yeah, well, this is the worst year. It's probably in 100 years.
Do they see any kind of trace this back at all, Mr. Doerr, to the political decisions that were made over the years?
Well, yeah. So they weren't treating the forests properly. They should have been having controlled burns. They should be in a position where they can clean out the dead wood, because that just becomes a wood supply for a fire.
You know, it's interesting. Every time we have a controlled burn out here at the Jonathan Dickinson Park, for example, you can almost predict that out of nowhere there will become a windstorm that will kick up there that they had totally no idea was going to happen. The winds come up, and it always seems like it almost or does get out of control over the years. I don't know whether we don't get the news of it, we don't pay attention. I don't know what that story is. So, but whatever. What's going on with our good friends with Antifa? Are we hearing anything more about these folks? I know that we're seeing that it's a lot of young girls that are involved in Antifa.
There are, and apparently there's been quite a few arrests. I think out of 125 arrests in one of the recent riots, about 105 or 6 were people that were from out of town. So these people are coming into town. Also, it was referred to recently that it was like 9 o'clock in the morning. A group of people just decided to go into a restaurant and give people a hard time. This is not. This is something that is obviously planned. You just don't get people up at 9 o'clock in the morning walking into a breakfast cafeteria trying to reap havoc.
Yeah, I noticed that. I saw that on video on the internet. They seem to be going after people who would offer very little defense. Is that something that seems to be typical?
Well, I mean, think of it. If you're there with your wife, your children, or with some older people, and you're sitting in a restaurant, you're sitting down, they walk in, and they automatically have greater authorities because they're standing next to you and asking you to raise your hand in affiliation with whatever their cause may be. That is definitely a frightening situation, to say the least.
Yeah, I saw one video where a young lady who was one of the protesters, we'll call that, grabbed the woman's drink and just drank a bunch out of it, and so on. Yeah, it's outrageous. It's outrageous. I do think, though, that these videos that are being shown that everybody seems to be taking, no matter what now, that these guys who are picking up these big rocks and bricks, and they had several of them, and then throwing them with a lot of force, smashing cars' windows with them, hitting people in the back of the head. You know, the one video of that guy, I think he was 66 years old. Some guy runs up from behind him with a brick, slams him in the head. People are laughing. They think that's pretty funty.
Did he survive? I saw him went right down on his face.
Went right down. I don't know what happened. They talked more about that. The people who were videoed this laughed. They thought that was really pretty darn funny. I think the only way that we're going to deal with these folks, I think, is by swift and very tough justice. I think that's what we need. I don't think it's going to happen, but that's what we need to have. I think we're going to see more infiltrating of these groups, and they're going to come back, and you've got some kid that's out there, and that's what these guys are. They're all young kids.
Well, people will do whatever they can get away with, and if they can feel they can get away with it, they'll do it. Look, here in Martin County, you're not going to see that happen. The sheriff's department here is a very strong and well managed police department, and you will not get away with something like that here in Martin County. And I think what's happening is even in the counties throughout the United States where you do have strong police power, the politicians aren't supporting them. In fact, it's redundant to say it now, but the defunding situation that's been going on throughout the liberal areas of this country is actually making it worse, making people feel they can get away with more. And then there's no bail. No bail is absolutely ludicrous. When you consider someone does something, commits a crime, they go in front of the judge and they're out, period. No bail. And they commit the same crime or worse crimes, and that makes no sense.
Sure, because
it totally eliminates authority.
They're being tacitly given the approval that it's okay. It can't be that bad if you guys didn't even take any money from me. I can go anywhere I want to go. I think you've got a complete system here in Martin County. You've got a very strong sheriff's department. I think Snyder has done an excellent job. I think he's a no nonsense kind of guy. Yet He's a great guy.
He's a great guy, right? Very friendly.
He's very friendly, but also a tough guy. No nonsense kind of guy. I think the reputation of our court system is no nonsense either. I think you commit a crime here, you're going to spend more time, or it's going to cost you a lot more headache, aggravation, time, whatever it's going to be, than say if you committed in another county, north or south of us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's pretty well known. I do like the way that when there's like the burglaries, like what were the
pillowcase burglars.
Well, our sheriff's department caught on to that pretty fast. And they realized there were people coming from down south, and they were looking for them on the interstate right around work hour. Well, gee.
Well, it's interesting because Martin County, they get caught. They do it in other counties. They come to Martin County, they get caught because we do have a very strong structure here, and I'm proud to say that.
So is it that we just have nicer people here, or is it that we have more of a tough system of law enforcement?
I think it's a combination. But the most important thing is if you have a tough law enforcement, I don't care what the people are, they're going to be nicer.
Well, you almost have to be.
Right? Exactly.
See, that's what keeps us in check. doesn't it?
Well, it keeps you in check. I know
Keeps
that.
me in check.
I
Absolutely.
know.
Well, I was going to throw my plastic cup
I know.
on the ground.
You have the biggest rearview mirror of any guy named Carl. Who's that following me?
I have a rear view mirror.
I don't know.
I've never used that before.
I
So-
didn't even know if you really have one.
So going back, we talked a little earlier about the hypocrisy that we see with the liberals, and really the hairstyling appointment was probably the greatest hypocritical thing I think you could see.
The thing that really gets me, just thinking about that, everybody I talk to that's really against Trump will give me so many generalities, like he's a liar, he's corrupt,
Yeah.
he's Putin's puppet,
Yeah.
he's this, he's that. But I have not heard anybody give me any real specifics. Have you?
No, and I don't think that you will. It's a lot of well, you know, and you're denying. It's like if you're anything but a pro climate, it's global warming all the way. Anything less than that, you're a climate denier. You're a science denier. You know, okay, I can't have my own opinion. No, science is science. Yeah, well, science is still out on it. Well, there are scientists. Yes, there might be some scientists. There's other scientists who say no. So it's okay if I want to debate it, because it's what I'm going to do is probably not going to have a whole lot of impact on the world's climate change. Me personally. Now we could go ahead and start in mass, but to be told that you can't even debate something, that's already settled. We're seeing that now with the systemic racism. That's done.
Oh yeah,
I don't
no.
really agree with that. No, then you're a racist. Well, no, I'm not a racist. Well, yes, you are.
Well, you know, I would love to have somebody give us a call and tell us about the lies and all of the things that Trump has done wrong. And we'll talk about some of the things he's done right, although we don't hear much of that in the news. But I have discussed this with a few people coming on Facebook that have very liberal ideas, and I'll challenge them with some facts, and they'll come back and just have generalities. And then I ask them, do me a favor. I give them the phone number for the station. I give them the time we're here. I said, let's talk about this on the air so that we can enlighten ourselves and the public in general as to the things Trump has done wrong and why you really dislike this individual. Legitimate reasons why you dislike him, other than the color of his hair, other than his hairstyle, other than his bombastic attitude and his hyperbole, which is not, that's not a reason to not have him as president of the United States. It's actions that count. It's results that count.
Joe, did you see that that poll that they took recently? Fascinating poll if you really look at it and dig a little deeper on it. And it was showing that I think they had Biden up by 2 points, whatever it was, 49, 47, whatever it was. But then they turned another question on the same poll, and they were asking, well, who do you think is going to win? Is it going to be Biden? Is it going to be Trump? And it was overwhelmingly Trump.
I like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, like by about 4 or 5 points on the same poll. So you have people that like Biden, perhaps more than Trump, who would say that out loud. But when it came back to the question of, well, who do you think is going to win? Trump.
Interestingly enough, when you're talking to somebody that is a Trump supporter, they consistently say if someone is in favor of Biden, they just shut up. They don't say anything. And I don't either. I just ignore it unless I can blurt out a fact that we may relate to the conversation. Beyond that, I don't want to get in a debate with someone because it's irrational 90% of the time, and it just becomes very frustrating.
Didn't Biden try to get into the term deplorable last week?
He did.
Yeah, I think that was. I remember hearing him say that. I thought that was a great mistake that he was going to be making if he jumped into that. I think that's what probably, if anything, turned the Trump campaign on when Hillary described all of
that hurt Hillary.
And by the way, she may have been right, but us deplorables seem to stick together.
Right.
You know,
birds of a feather.
Let's do are deplorable together. Yeah.
Hey, I like it.
Is that how that goes?
Yeah, it sounds about right.
Well, let's use it. I think we'll give that off to Trump. He can use it as well. Well, it's amazing the things that are being said now. This deal about the new book that's out, Woodward's book.
There was nothing new there. There's nothing new.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, Yes, the president doesn't want us to panic. He's
Right.
going to go, look, it's not as bad. Look, the guys just, keep social distancing. We're going to be okay. As opposed to, oh my God, we're all going to die.
Well, listen, Fauci said he heard both sides of the story. All the conversations about it behind the closed doors and in front of the public were the same. He and Fauci was definitely supporting Trump in terms of, hey, he did the right thing. And Woodward was just trying to obviously sell books.
I don't think he has anything. To me, it was
No.
nothing. To me, if I'm Trump, I'm going, yeah, that's what I said. I want to keep it down. I want to keep the panic down. So it looks like we had a quick phone call here.
Okay, it's Russ.
Good morning, Russ.
How are
It's
you?
odd that we've been told for 5 years not to listen to a single thing Trump has ever said, yet every single human being on earth was to his beck and call when he told us not to be scared of this thing.
Yeah.
Find that odd?
Well, Russ, would you rather have a president who would get on and go, "We are all screwed, Mr. and Mrs. America. We're dead. This virus is going to kill us all. We might as well just roll over and accept it." Would that have been a better thing for him to have said, or I wonder?
Probably not.
Did we lose Russ?
Did we lose Russ?
I hope Russ is
Okay.
okay. Maybe Russ doesn't have Russ. Hopefully, you don't have the
John,
virus, Russ.
John, it's just I don't like the way you insult people when they call up like that. I mean, you've got be a little kinder, will you?
No, Russ is too quick. I wouldn't want to insult Russ. He'd have a too quick of a comeback.
He's
So
a sharp
well,
guy.
thanks for the call, Russ. Anyway,
I think he got disconnected.
I think we got your. Well, hopefully it wasn't a Biden person who jumped on him.
No. And what was Biden's last remark was he lied to the public. He made such a big deal out of it. He's such an empty suit when he makes these commentaries, and these commentaries all written for him. And if he doesn't have those notes in front of him, he can't even complete a sentence.
Well, when you have a commercial that's an anti-Trump commercial, and all you do on the commercial is, "Come on, man. I thought it was an anti-Biden commercial, but it was a pro-Biden spot. And I'm thinking, surely you wouldn't put that on to hype your own candidacy. Goodness gracious. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's Perspective for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in with Joe Dewar and John Pearson. Of course, you've been listening to WSTU 1450 AM and WPSL 1590 AM.
And look us up on Google at WPSL Radio. And you can, actually, you don't see it, but you can hear us streaming if you can't get to your radio.
Well, Joe Dewar, once again, and thank you for help plug CarBuyersService.com. CarBuyersService.com. And let me help you buy a car. Till
It's a great website.
Till next week, it's John Pearson and Joe Dewar saying good day.
Have a great week.